afternoon, and welcome to this lecture sponsored by the Institute of World Politics. For those of you who are new, IWP is a graduate school of national security, intelligence, and international affairs. We offer a doctoral program, 7 master's degree programs, including 2 online MAs, and 18 certificates of graduate study. If you're interested in learning more about us, please feel free to speak to one of our staff at the conclusion of this event or visit iwp.edu. We'd like to thank all of our supporters who make IWP events possible. To support the work of IWP, please visit iwp.edu/donate. Today we'll be hearing from Dr. Hoppal, who will deliver a lecture on his book, Philosophical Aspects of the Formation of the European Union. Dr. Hoppal is an associate professor at the Corvinus University of Budapest at the Department of Political Science, visiting DC for this month only. With that, please welcome Dr. Hoppal.
So, hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Marek, friends, and especially my daughter. Hello. So, good afternoon, everyone. I have to start with bad news. I'm extremely hungry, and therefore I suggest that I will speak on, let's say, 40 or 50 minutes, and we will have, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes for discussion. And look. As an introduction, I would say that I was trained as a Roman Catholic theologian. After completing my master's and licentiate in theology, I studied for many years philosophy. And I completed my PhD in philosophy. And I'm also involved in the businesses of the Hungarian Association for Religious Studies. I'm the general secretary of this society, and in the last, let's say, 12 years, I have been lecturing, and I'm the associate professor of the Corvinus University, a Hungarian university. Now, the point what I would like to make here as an introduction is that I'm not going to speak as a theologian, right? What I'm looking for is a theological issue. What I'm looking for are philosophical aspects, reason and logos, as the Greek says, of different phenomena. The topic of my talk is the following. I'm somewhat perplexed with the title of my paper because now I would change it. So I'm going to speak about philosophical aspects. It means that I'm going to try to find essences and doctrines and some hidden philosophical aspects in a political phenomenon, what we call the European Union. So the topic is to getting closer to the nature of the European Union, of Europeanness, from a philosophical aspect. But the way that we will take, what I will take, is something that has to do a lot with theology and religious studies. Okay, but still I say that I'm not going to speak here as a theologian. I will speak as a philosopher. Okay, basically my talk has 3 main parts. In the first part, we will read the so-called founding documents of the European Union, the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU and the Lisbon Treaty, Treaty of Lisbon. In the second part, I will try to show you the origin or the fundament, the basis of all these ideas, what we can find interesting in this charter and in the Lisbon Treaty. And finally, and we're going to travel back in the past, and I will show you the history of a notion, the notion of personhood, because I find it extremely interesting. And I will show you that the notion, the history of the notion of the personhood, persona in Latin, was the way which paved the way for what we call today Christian democracy and the political phenomenon, what we can call it as the origin of the European Union. So, okay, as to the first part, you might say that the EU today seems to be rather a set of economical contracts. But my point is that as its roots, the EU is a spiritual, intellectual phenomenon. In other words, the EU, and that's going to be my point, is a philosophical, spiritual phenomenon. And I'm looking for principles when I talking about philosophical and spiritual phenomenon. Now coming to the first point, we can read very interesting things. And what I suggest to you is that always try to find in the text the meaning, the truth of the things. The truth of the things, this term comes from Thomas Aquinas, who said that philosophers and philosophy is interested in the truth of the things, veritas rerum, in the very essence of the phenomenon. Now, as you know, in the European Union has no, let's say, constitution as such, right? As to the question of constitution, the point of a constitution is to serve as a starting point of reasoning. And my point is here is that even if there is not a founding document of the EU as constitution, there are two documents which can be called as, or can be said as the so-called constitution in the quotation marks of the European Union. And this is the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU and the Treaty of Lisbon. These are two distinct documents. And the point is that since I call them, I refer them as constitutions. And my point is that it is not, so these documents are not just legal documents. They are not just documents, consisting of sets of different legal reasoning. It is about reasoning. It is about it is on a philosophical issue, namely, it gives a basis, a fundamental basis for what we can call as a constitution. Now, I quote the first from the first document from the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. Conscious of its spiritual and moral heritage, the Union is founded on the indivisible, universal values of human dignity, freedom, equality, and solidarity. It is based on the principles of democracy and the rule of law. It places the individual at the heart of its activities by establishing the citizenship of the Union and by creating an area of freedom, security, and justice. Human dignity is inviolable. It must be respected. It must be respected and protected. Okay. In another section, it says, we all find these quotations in the very beginning of this document. Right to the integrity of the person. First, everyone has the right to respect for his or her physical and mental integrity. In the field of medicine and biology, the following must be respected in particular. Okay, I quit some part, and I'm coming to point C. The prohibition of making the human body and its parts as such a source of financial gain. D. The prohibition of the reproductive cloning of human beings. So my question is, why are these issues important in a legal document, right? Because, and I will argue that this is not only a legal document, right? Okay, you can find all this text here. I mean, in its full version. And as to the second source, the Lisbon Treaty says, and it's very important. Yeah, just a minute. Drawing inspiration from the cultural, religious, and humanist inheritance of Europe, from which have developed the universal values of the inviolable and inalienable rights of the human person, freedom, democracy, equality, and the rule of law, and so on and so forth. The Union is founded on the values of respect of human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons. Rights of persons. What's up with you? Minorities. Belonging to minorities. These values. Just a minute. These values. How can I put it on the right side? So these values are common to the member states in the society in which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between women and men prevail. And finally, and again a quotation from the Lisbon Treaty, the Union's aim is to promote peace, its values, and the well-being of its peoples. The Union shall offer its citizens an era of freedom, security, and justice without internal frontiers, in which the free movement of persons is ensured in conjunction with appropriate measures with respect to external borders and controls, asylum. Okay, right, okay. So what is interesting in these documents is that they are, so these documents are referring to a term which has a long history in the philosophical reasoning and in theology, and this is the history of the notion of person. Don't you think that it is odd that a legal document like this begins with a treatise of on a philosophical topic? Because these texts, like religious and humanist inheritance of Europe, speaking about inviolable rights and inalienable rights of the human person, speaking about freedom and equality, and later human dignity, and later freedom again, rule of law, respect for human rights. These are hardcore philosophical topics. And my question is that what is the conceptual, let's say, philosophical framework of this political phenomenon, what we call the EU? So my point is, and now we are turning to the second part of my presentation. So my point is that, and I made a statement right now, okay? So my point is that the European Union, even its most irreligious period like today, has its roots in a philosophical tradition, philosophical, theological, religious tradition. And I'm interested especially in the nature of this philosophical, theological, and religious tradition. And this tradition is called Christian democracy. Here you can read, if you can read, and I hope that you can. It's coming in a minute. Go down, right? Here you can read some names, right? Who can be persons, politicians, right, who can be considered as the so-called founding fathers of the EU. Robert Schuman, Alcide de Gasperi, Konrad Adenauer, and von Coudenhove-Kalergi Richard, who is rather a philosopher. So he's the only one I would say that who can be considered as a philosopher, right? Okay, these three persons are politicians, and as politicians, they wrote only let's say memoirs, right? Okay, Konrad Adenauer, for example, wrote 3 volumes of memoirs. And there's a discussion about who are the real founding founders of the EU. These 3 persons belong for sure to this group. But anyway, so Schuman, De Gasperi, and Adenauer were politicians. But my point is that that the politics they developed, the politics they did, can have a reasonable framework, and this reasonable framework is Christian democracy. Now, Christian democracy is a political ideology inspired by the Christian social teaching to respond to the challenges of society and politics. We can also say that Christian democracy has drawn from Catholic social teaching and neo-scholasticism. So these 3 or more persons, politicians, as the founding fathers, belong to a certain political tradition, to a certain political ideological tradition, Christian democracy. This Christian democracy, as an idea, as a way of looking things, goes back to what we call as the teaching, the social teaching of the Catholic Church. And the best document, the founding document, yeah, that's the right word. The founding document of the social teaching of the Catholic Church was written by Pope Leo XIII and has a Latin title, Rerum Novarum, on new things or the newness or things or something like this. That would be the translation. So Pope Leo XIII, who was a genius anyway, he was a very well-trained philosopher, and he's the one in a way who re-edited the works of Saint Thomas Aquinas and introduced Thomas Aquinas in the education of seminaries. So the Rerum Novarum as a document is a paradigmatical work. We can find here the main ideas, the main concepts, and notably, we are looking for concepts, we are looking for philosophical concepts. And in the Rerum Novarum, which was written in 1891, Pope Leo outlined the rights of workers to a fair wage, for safe working conditions. He outlined here the right of forming trade unions. And on the other hand, this document, Pope Leo XIII, affirmed the rights to property, and I think it's very important, and strongly, on the other hand, it strongly opposed socialism. All right. More importantly, the Rerum Novarum introduced ideas, okay? Ideas, what we can call the central ideas of Christian democracy or Christian socialism. Now, let me list of these ideas, and I will pick one very important idea from this group. Care of creation, okay? Peace, promotion of peace is a very important idea, a very important principle of Christian democracy and of this document. Economic justice, global solidarity, work, right? It's also an idea, it's also a principle, right? Okay. Today we often speak about society based on work, right, or labor. Call to family, humanity and participation, stewardship of creation. That's again a nice idea, a nice principle. Human equality, subsidiarity, solidarity, personhood or understanding the human being as a person, dignity, role of the government, and which is very important also for a Catholic Pope, that Jesus, all right, Jesus can be also a principle in society, okay, and common good, and there are many others, right, okay. The list can go, let's say, up to 30 items, but the point is that there are four, let's say, principal ideas in this list, and these main ideas are considered to be the founding ideas of the European Union, the core ideas of the Christian democracy, and the core ideas of the foundation of the European Union. And these are the idea of subsidiarity, the principle of solidarity, and the principle of personhood, and the principle of common good, right? Bonum commune. So these are the so-called four cardinal principles of these documents. Okay, before we start to read this document, I mean some passages of this document, let me tell you that what I would like to highlight in this document is the use of the notion of person. And my point is that we have to understand why he uses, I mean, why the Pope uses in this context, in this way, the notion of person, and what does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to understand human being as a person? What does it mean? What does it mean to speak about the human being as a person and not as an object, and so on and so forth? Okay, and here I highlighted in the text what might be interesting for us, right? Okay. In point 13, it says that right to property, which has been proved to belong naturally to individual persons, must likewise belong to a man in his capacity of head of a family. Nay, that right is all stronger in proportion as the human person receives a wider extension in the family group. Okay, it is a most sacred law of nature, that the father should provide food and all necessaries for those whom he has begotten. And similarly, it is natural that he should wish that his children who carry on, so to speak, and continue his personality, and so on and so forth, okay? In point 20, it says, of these duties, the following bind the proletarian and the worker fully and faithfully to perform the work which has been freely and equitably agreed upon, never to injure the property, nor to outrage the person, okay? He has skipped some. The following duties bind the wealthy owner and the employer not to look upon their work people as their bondsman, but to respect in every man his dignity as a person ennobled by Christian character. Don't you think it's strange? I mean, it's very odd that he uses this term personhood, right? To understand the human being as a person. It's a recurring issue in this document that while opposing to socialism and socialist understanding of human being, he always says that the human being is a person. The socialist in this context, as far as according to the understanding of Pope Leo XIII, socialists understand human being only as a machine, right? As Marx said, man is a finely tuned machine. Now, what does it mean to understand the person, the human being as a person? Okay. Okay. Another, another quotation. Just a minute. This is from point 44. And after this quotation, I will quote some reflections on that, and I will try to answer the question, right? Okay. Hence, a man's labor necessarily bears two notes or characters. First of all, it is personal. Why is that important to lay stress on that work, the labor is personal? Is it not personal, right? Inasmuch as the force which acts is bound up with the personality. Personality, what has it to do with personality? And is the exclusive property of him who acts, and further has given to him for his advantage. Secondly, man's labor is necessary. Necessary in what sense, right? I would say that it's only secondary, right? Okay, it's something which we can add at a certain point to what we call deep personality. For without the result of labor, a man cannot live, and self-preservation is a law of nature, which is wrong to disobey. Okay. What I would like to show you in this text that it is a odd use of the notion of person, because there is a whole history of the notion of person, which we can read, which we can experience here in this text. And I'm especially interested in this. Why does he speak about the dignity of person, and why not on the dignity on labor, right? Okay, he speaks about constantly on dignity. What has dignity, human dignity, to do with human person? Okay, these questions are philosophical questions, and these questions, I mean, this whole issue constitutes the realm of philosophical personalism. So what we can find in this document, in the Rerum Novarum, is a philosophical, personalist understanding of human being. Okay, but we find here the signs of philosophical personalism. Okay, look, this document had a huge impact on later developments. And in short, we can say that the above-mentioned persons, the leading persons of Christian democracy, they all use the central ideas, the central principles of the Rerum Novarum. And that's the reason why I say that the European Union, at least in its roots, has something to do with Christian democracy, with Christianity, with religious understanding of the world, right? Okay. But let me go on and make it clear. Okay. If you don't mind, I propose a further reflection. It's just nice, right? Okay. So there were many reflections on this document, on the Rerum Novarum, such as Quadragesimo Anno, such as the reflections given by those philosophers and politicians. And one of the most important figure who reflected upon this document was John Paul II, who was a real philosopher pope. And the title of his encyclical was Centesimus Annus. You know, he reflected upon this document on the Rerum Novarum after 100 years. And I'm going to quote only the point 11, a certain passage from the point 11, and it says that from this point forward, it will be necessary to keep in mind that the main thread And in a certain sense, the guiding principle of Pope Leo's encyclical and all of the church social doctrine is a, and this is my I think this is the most important part, is a correct view of the human person, of his unique value, inasmuch as man is the only creature on earth which God will for himself. God has imprinted his own image and likeness on man, conferring upon him an incomparable dignity, as the encyclical frequently insists. In effect, beyond the rights which man acquires by his own work, there exist rights which do not correspond to any work he performs, by which flow from his essential dignity as a person. Again, we encounter with the term person and dignity and property. It seems to us that the notion of person is fundamental in respect to other so-called values or principles we can find in this document. We have to understand what the Pope and this tradition means by when they are speaking about human being as a person. Because if we are speaking about human being as a person, that justifies only what the right understanding of right to property. This understanding justifies only the concept of right and duties and any other principles. Okay, but what is this understanding? What is this traditional understanding of human being as a person? Now, in order to understand this, okay, we skip these parts. But anyway, I think that John Paul II is not only a theologian or philosopher, he's a good writer, right? Okay. So please feel free to read these passages from his Centesimus Annus. And one recurring issue especially in John Paul II is the transcendent dignity of the person. Why does it have a transcendent dignity? What is this dignity? What is this transcendence in a person? Now, in order to understand how important is this notion is, namely the person, we have to go back to to biblical sources and to the debates of early Christianity. Again, in the first part, we started from the analysis of the text of the founding text of the European Union. And I said that there are signs of philosophy. There are signs of philosophical understanding in these founding documents. Secondly, in the second part, we try to understand what Christian democracy is, and I identify Christian democracy as let's say the framework, the spiritual framework, the intellectual framework of the European Union. And now we are traveling back, let's say 2,000 years, and we will try to find the importance of the notion of person. Look, the notion of person, persona, is an example in this sense, right? Okay, and as an example, it serves to understand what does it mean to apply philosophical terms in the realm of theology, and what is the result, what is the outcome of this whole story. There are other examples we could have applied, but I say that the notion, the history of the notion of person illustrates what we would like to understand. Okay, the notion of the person and personhood. Okay, I skipped the biblical sources, right? Okay, just in short, Old Testament, there is a there is a clear vision of the in the Old Testament of the Father, of the so-called first divine being. And my point is that this understanding, this vision of the Father influenced the early Christian authors and writers. Now, in what sense? The debates of the early Christianity, they are very important, right? Okay, the first 9th century of early Christianity is called as the age or the centuries of church fathers. There were many church fathers, such as Saint Augustine and others. They all participated in these debates. So the first 9th century of the history of Christianity is very important from the point of view that all what we know, all what we know as science has its roots in that period, right? Okay. So science was born in early Christianity. That's one of my points, right? Okay. So science was born in early Christianity, but why? Early Christians had to do, let's say, they had a very, let's say, weird task. But since that was the most important task, what they had to do, and this was to answer the question, that what is one and what is three in God. Okay, today it's a very, very easy question and easy to answer. Okay, God is one, okay, because its essence is one, and God is three because there are three persons in the same God. Okay, but it was not that easy to understand the notion of person, the notion of essence, and other notions for the Assyrians, the Christian Assyrians of the 3rd century, the Egyptians of the 4th century, let's say the Jewish minority in Rome in the 1st century. What Christianity had to do is to explain again what is one and what is three in deity. Look, this is a theological issue. It's a theological question, but its solution is philosophical. Because concerning the term ousia, right, essence, the very first Council of Nicaea, which was held in 325. Nicaea is now in Turkey, right? That was the first time when they applied a non-theological term, a philosophical term, and they applied it in the realm of theology. They said that in order to understand what is one in God, we have to apply a philosophical term of Aristotle and term of Plato, right? Okay, and they were brave enough to apply such a term. Okay, but believe me, it was not a sudden solution. I mean, sudden. How to say that in English? It was not a. It took hundreds of years to understand it. So today we say that, the first Council of Nicaea, the essence of God was defined later in the Second Council of Constantinople. It was applied to the Holy Spirit. Later in Ephesus and in Chalcedon, they clarified that and that theological issue. No, these were debates for centuries. And believe me, even if we arrive at to the so-called fourth Ecumenical Council of Chalcedon, the half of the Christian world was Arian and not Orthodox Christian, okay? So the point is what I would like to say is that, okay, in case of the Father, in the case of the God, which is one, okay, then use a term and borrow a term from philosophy and say that the ousia is the same in the three divine persons. Okay. But how can we understand what is three in the divine being? Right? Today we say the person. There are three persons in the one divine being. Look, again, but the term person, persona in Latin, prosopon in Greek, was a irrational term, for example, for the Syrians, so the Syrian Christians. They did not understand the term prosopon because in their native tongue did not exist such a term as prosopon. Okay, the point is that the early Christianity applied the term saying that there are three prosopon, prosopia, in the very same divine being. There are three persons, and they said that the term prosopon stands for defining the individuality of each divine person. That the persons can clearly be, let's say, divided or identified, right, as individuals, and it contains many other insights. So my point is that this is again, the ousia, the term ousia, comes from the philosophical realm, from a philosophical vocabulary of Plato and Aristotle. The term prosopon comes from the world of Greek theaters, right? The prosopon was the mask what a actor used in a theater, in a Greek theater, right? Okay, the prosopon, let's say the person, the mask, by which the actor can be identified, or the role he played can be identified. Okay, don't you think? I mean, don't you think it's all metaphorical, you know? And early Christianity was brave enough to apply, to use such a, let's say, metaphorical understanding, such a term coming from the world of theaters. Very interesting. And we arrived to a, let's say, a definition given by Boëthius, who lived in this, let's say, 6th century. And this definition goes like this: persona est naturae rationalis individua substantia. This, sorry for bothering you with these Latin and Greek terms, but okay. So this is a result of a debate lasting for centuries, right? Okay, and this Boëthian definition was used throughout it was used for centuries. It was used by the early scholasticism, by the high scholasticism, and also by classical British empiricists. The point is that we have to understand the meaning of this definition. Persona est naturae rationalis individua substantia. It means that a person is an individual, okay, substance, individual substance of a rational nature. The person, persona, is a kind of substance having a rational nature, or consisting of a rational nature. But the point is individuality. What does that mean? It means that, the man, human person, right, cannot be divided, is indivisible, right, okay? Cannot be multiplicated. Is it the right word? To multiplicate something? Cannot be cloned, right? If today we can say, okay? Only a person can have dignity, right? Okay. Naturae rationalis, for example, means that human beings as persons can learn things, can learn, let's say languages, for example, but rationality is inborn with human being, right? We are naturally rational beings. Animals can pick up different, let's say, what behavior patterns, right? Okay, but we were born naturally rational. Okay, so this definition contains many insights, and my point is that this definition was used for centuries. And just another remark to this, and then we come back to the first part of the lecture. So look, this also, I mean, the understanding of person, the understanding of the notion of person also goes for divine being, right? Okay, for the divine being. Okay, so the debates of the early Christianity was not only about the human being as a person, but about the divine being and of divine persons, right? Okay, and the understanding of divine persons as a theological topic influenced the understanding of human beings as persons. Okay, is that clear? Okay. Now I call this as a tradition, right? Okay. A personalistic understanding of human being, and my point is that this is exactly what can be found in the founding documents of the EU in an implicit way. So my point is that the founding documents of the EU are not explicit philosophical writings. No, because they are written for political whatever entities, right? Okay, but still there is a lot of philosophy in it. Still there is a personalistic understanding of human being, and we saw the history of this of the term person. Okay. You see that theology influenced the philosophical understanding of person. And it seems to us, it might seem to you that the personalistic understanding of human being has very much to do with religion, but I say that it's a common human tradition or common human, let's say, heritage. Okay, so my point is that the EU, even if today it denies having been rooted in any kind of religion, there are signs of Christian personalistic understanding of human being, even in the founding documents of the EU. Okay, thank you much for your attention. And look, it was almost 50 minutes. Oh, don't you mind if I have some water? And I open the floor for questions and remarks. There are two questions first. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Oh,
yep. Do you need a mic?
no, I don't need
Come with. No mic. Do we have a mic? Do you really want a microphone or not?
No, I don't need the
All right,
mic.
that's okay.
Having a mic. First,
Go ahead.
did you work in the States in the early 90s? I've said a name like yours in Budapest in the early 90s because I met someone. So.
That's supposed to be my uncle who is interested in shamanism, religious studies. So right. He's an ethnologist and researcher of shamanism in Asia. And
Associated with Senator Dodd back then.
so what?
Someone my sister associated with Senator Dodd's office is someone I'm thinking of, but if it wasn't you. On this, when they use the language drawing inspiration from, that's a very vague license. So if someone is an individual, or is it more for mobility for a workforce in industrial time instead of being tied to a lord and a monarch or a royal? So you have some individuality, you have a right to property, but that may be more to be taxed. So you're not necessarily allowed to be an individual success because they're going to tax you with all the other. So it seems like they've kept it vague, so they can say you are free, but you're also still sort of stuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was a remark, isn't it? Right?
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes. So, Mike, I have a question. So, on this, like some of the, you like the organized paper, you mentioned that you mentioned about influence of Catholic philosophy for formation of European Union. But I was curious, does the philosophy of the European Union also reflect Protestant philosophy? As you know, many European nations have also the Protestant faith, like for example, British Anglican Church, German Lutheran Church, Scottish Presbyterian, and the Dutch Reformed Church here.
So
that was the first question, whether their philosophy was also reflected in this philosophy in European Union.
Yeah. In short, yes.
Yeah.
But the question is, in what sense?
Regarding human rights.
Look. Adenauer was Catholic. Wait, Schumann was what? And he was also a Belgium-born France. What was? I think it's Catholic also. These guys were all Catholics, right? But the point is that at the roots of Christian democracy, there is a Protestant, let's say, movement, a Protestant tradition. Okay, I'm not familiar with this, but clearly there are authors in the 19th century, Protestant writers who contributed to this issue. Sorry, I cannot recall names. I know that there are some authors. Right?
Well,
okay.
also we refer that the French President Charles de Gaulle's mother was Huguenot. I read. That's why I read that he was kind of generous about that kind of Protestant faith with respect to his mother's religion. He was Catholic.
But anyway, so I wanted to tell you that my example has is a general Christian example. So also Protestants accept this kind of implicit understanding of human being as a person. Okay, they have to because they also belong to the long tradition of Christianity. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And Mike, I have a second question, sir. Does the philosophy of the formation of European Union also influence the countries in the new continent, which is very intercultural, like the United States or Canada? You know, the Canada is bilingual country.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my curiosity. I wonder whether is the philosophy of formation of European Union was translation to the diverse community in the United States or Canada.
I'm not quite sure whether I got the point of your question, but
Does the philosophy of the European philosophy of formation of European Union influence in the United States or Canada?
you mean the formation of the EU in the 20th century?
Yeah, kind of diplomacy or the some of lifestyle?
Well, I'm not a specimen on this issue, but certainly yes. Sorry, I cannot answer this question. I cannot answer this question properly. I have my own opinion on this, but no,
In the aspect of the cultural immigrants from Europe.
look, if we say, and I think there is also a debate on that, whether the United States is a, so what is the relation of the United States with Europeanness, okay? Clearly there is, okay, but in what sense and how deep are these relations? Can we say, for example, that as I try to argue that Europe has very much to do with Christianity, it also goes for, does it also go for the United States? How can you argue for that? It's okay. I will accept this point. I'm all right. I accept this point. But don't you think that it's highly questionable to argue for this? My question is there an ongoing debate on this issue in the United States today? Christian roots of the United States?
It's a current issue.
All right.
It's a current issue, right? Oh, and it's going to become more an issue going toward 250th anniversary in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
So what the founding is, people are reading it. So there were years they were saying God isn't in the Constitution, but it's signed, done in the year of our Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So you say your rights come from your Creator. People are getting away from the 100 years of trying to find a socialist interpretation. So it's where the debate's happening, or starting to happen, or at least where the divide is right now between the two sides of the polarization.
I have a short remark on this issue. You know, from our perspective, I mean, from a European perspective, the United States is the result of the so-called Enlightenment, of the philosophy of the Enlightenment. But still, I say that it is so nice to read as a European the founding documents of the United States. For example, to understand the term "we, the people of the United States," it's so nice. It really makes me glad to read a text like this, because I still think that it is also a philosophical text. Okay.
But it can get fun when you get to the word order as the ninth word. If you read it as a noun, then it's the people's order. Democrats will try to read it as an order to form, not in order to form, but in order to. Then they move form to more perfect, as like it's a loophole for tyranny.
But this whole story is so nice,
But
don't you think?
It's the people's order, the order ordained the Constitution, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're getting into philosophical people's rights.
But in the meantime, they didn't want it to be the loophole for tyranny.
Well, it's
That
not,
was the
but
goal.
the Democrats for 100 years, since Teddy Roosevelt thought maybe if I can get a third term by bring fascism here, there's been playing language. And,
Marek, you have a question? Marek?
Yes, I do. I absolutely thank you for the presentation, and I absolutely agree that Christianity permeates like music or fumes anything about the United States and its constitution and the European Union and its basic documents. Unfortunately, as far as the European Union is concerned, it looks to me like it's either irrelevant or it's a deception operation. In other words, the new crop, the new generation of leaders in the EU hijacked the agenda, camouflaged their nefarious plans with something that sounds familiar, has sounded familiar for the past 2,000 years, and are having a ball. Still invoking Christianity, but not really. So they have their cake and eat it too. This hasn't happened in the United States, even though the founding fathers were Protestants and some of them Freemasons.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them took their Christianity seriously, whereas in the European Union, it's true that flaccid individuals like Schumann, Gaspari, etc., they did make Christian democratic noises, but they were not conservative.
Mhm.
So there is no the clinging of crusader swords anymore. It's just placidity and deception.
Right.
Sorry.
There's another question. Do we have, let's say, 5 minutes for questions?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. It was quite interesting for me to see another different version of funding documents and all of this for the Constitution of an International Student. So that was very insightful. I'd love to see some. Sorry, I would love to see some of the application and execution, especially for us young people, young minds, of how these funding documents define modern term issues. And one of the issues that I think of is, for instance, immigration. I know immigration is a very hot topic when it comes to the European Union, especially it being legal, illegal. How would you, using these funding documents, define, especially solve these kind of issues that are very recent in modern times? Thank you very much.
That's again a huge question, don't you think? All right. So yeah. The notion of person, I mean, the history of the notion of person was one example in this whole grand history, grand story. Or immigration, I mean, the right for free movement is could have been also an example of this lecture. And there were many who discussed this issue, such as John Locke, you know, a British philosopher of the 17th century. Sorry, and later Rousseau and many others. But my point is that that in order to understand whether you have right for free movement, for immigration, first you have to understand the notion of person. Who is the subject of all these issues, right? Okay, who is free to have right for going there or going that, or being a subject of immigration, migration. Sorry. Okay. So it's a. I mean, the notion of person is a fundamental term in this whole story. Okay. And it all depends on how you understand it, how you interpret it. If you say that human being is just a object, then it can go wherever he or she wants. Okay. Please feel free to immigrate wherever you want.
But people move in the European Union freely, just like in the United States. But if you're coming from another country, that's a different persona.
Well.
Most don't move in the EU.
Look,
Kids go to Oxford and then they come back home.
if you
A lot of people, electricians.
if you want to understand the problems of immigration, you have to understand what citizenship means, for example, what the notion of person means, what freedom means to a certain extent. Don't you think that these are, again, hardcore philosophical topics? Okay. So in this sense, I cannot really answer your question. Okay, I can't really answer your question. I can problematize it, and I can quote some authors. I think you won't be satisfied with my answer. So,
After unification of Germany, however, that the Polish professional filled up some vacancy of the professional vocations of former East Germany, as most East German moved to the West German region.
question, remark?
No, I just wanted to say something. Europeans, if they don't move, isn't that like conservative?
No, that's just rooted in mass community.
Rooted, and there is not enough place because somebody else is rooted there. United States is different because there are space to go.
There are empty Italian villages and empty Italian little towns where the city council say you have €1, we'll sell you a house if you keep it up. So there is plenty of space. It's just, in general, and I've lived all over Europe, in particular in Denmark, but not only, in general, people do their own company. Not me. I was in Cambridge, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the point. The point is how most people perceive it. They perceive the EU project as alien, imposed on them by the elites. Something we have discovered in America, where the populist way simply resents what is done against the common people, the flyover country, resents that the fentanyl epidemic killing hundreds of thousands is just a question of, the I-95 corridor, and who cares about West Virginia anyway? There are the same reflexes among the common people, and hardly anybody talks in the EU. At least here, we have debates. Whether you're a liberal or a conservative, there are debates in the EU that has ended to a large extent. There is a pretense of a consensus. And you have outliers like Hungary.
In Hungary, there are still debates on this issue. There are, believe me. And in this sense, Hungary is an interesting place for you, for Americans. Sorry for calling you American. Right, okay. Polish American.
I ask you like the influence of the philosophy of the European Union to the United States in diplomatic aspect, because European Union gets along with North Atlantic Treaty Organization under strong influence of the United States.
Mhm.
As you see here. That is why.
Right. Are there any questions, remarks? Let me tell you a funny story. Martin Heidegger, the very famous German thinker. Actually, he's the most. Oh, come on. He was.
Sorry, National Socialist.
Right. Okay. All right. That's not true, by the way. I mean, he. No. So the anecdote goes like this: he finished his lecture, and he asked Fragen, Bemerkungen. It means questions, remarks, and believe me, there was 17 minutes silence after this question. Right. There was no question for 17 minutes. And finally, someone raised his hand and asked the question. But the story is that that's the difference between Europe and the United States. We had questions. You had questions immediately after my talk. So there is no need for silence. Okay, go ahead. Okay, last question.
Just another question. You said Heidegger was a Nazi.
He was a party member, yeah.
Yeah. Jefferson has.
That's not the same as membership in the.
Isn't that comes with the age? When you're living an age,
Oh.
you kind of do what everybody else
Nobody
does.
in my family has joined with the Nazi
So-
Party or the Communist Party.
I have no family member in the
Well, that's
Communist
what I
Party
mean. So
or Nazi
let's not
Party.
blame everything on the spirit of the times. You have
That's
something
what's
called-
happening today.
No, it's called the free will. You don't have to be woke.
Okay.
Jefferson has slaves, right? Is he guilty about that?
Not everybody has that's
George Washington has
Okay, ladies and
Sorry
gentlemen.
Is
to
he
interrupt.
guilty about that?
Sorry to interrupt the spirited debate, but
I don't think so.
you could take.
They're not guilty
We could
at
have
all.
these discussions outside of the next room.
All right. Thank you much for your attention. It was a pleasure to be here. And I'm really feel honored that you showed up in such a huge number. Thank you. Thank you.